comrades to the IBMT's annual commemoration by the sculpture to the International Brigades in London's South Bank. And we may be a little constrained in our commemoration today because of the global pandemic, and we may be physically distant, and for most of you, we'll be online. But as we've been here every year since the unveiling of the memorial sculpture in 1985, we are here to remember the 2,500 British and Irish men and women who went to Spain between 1936 and 1939 to defend democracy and to fight fascism. More than 500 of them gave their lives. These men and women came from all walks of life, predominantly workers, and they were the first generation to fight modern fascism. And we remember them with pride and admiration. And we vow to continue that fight. We also mourn the loss since last year of many friends who shared the aims of preserving the memory and spirit of the International Brigades. Amongst them, Max Arthur, author and filmmaker. Chris Farman, historian of the Oxfordshire Volunteers and IBMT activist. Ian McDougall, historian of the Scottish Volunteers. Herminio Martinez, Basque child refugee of 1937 and IBMT activist. Eric Stanford, sculptor of the Reading Memorial. Cécile Pontongi, French resistance heroine, and Priscilla Thornycroft, artist and activist in the Artists International Association of the 1930s. We honour their memory too. So now I'm delighted to be able to introduce our first speaker, Marlene Sidaway, President of the International Brigade Memorial Trust. Marlene.
Hello everyone. This year we're commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and the defeat of Nazi Germany. It began in 1939, just a few months after the Spanish Civil War ended in victory for General Franco and his fascist allies Hitler and Mussolini. The International Brigade went to Spain to fight fascism in the hope that by defeating this evil, they would avert a Second World War. When that fight was lost, they had to go on for another 6 years fighting the same enemy. But fascism wasn't defeated in 1945. Franco stayed in power in Spain until 1975 when he died. And fascism never really goes away. It waits until the time is ripe, and then it rears its ugly head. My late partner, David Marshall, fought in both those wars, and he wrote this poem. It's called "I Have Lived in a Time of Heroes." I have lived in a time of heroes and heroines, of great objectors to subjection and persecution. I have rubbed rough shoulders with unknown, unnumbered soldiers, dead in their tens of thousands. The working men who saved Madrid, those lads that fell at Alamein, at Arnhem, and at Stalingrad. These were my comrades, my companions, civilians, conscripts, partisans, who did great deeds to win hard victory. In unremembered graves they lie, untrumpeted, their songs forgotten. Our children are not told their history. And you, forget them at your peril. For though you fight as well as they, you will be betrayed as we were. And now we're delighted that we have with us today Jeremy Corbyn, MP for Islington North. Jeremy has always been a great friend of the International Brigade Memorial Trust and a supporter. And I'm going to invite him now to say a few words and later lay a wreath on behalf of the IBMT. Jeremy.
Thank you very much for coming along today. Thank you very much to all those in the International Brigade Memorial for ensuring that this event takes place every year. And I consider it an honour to be invited here to lay a wreath in memory of those that fought in the International Brigade and those that laid down their lives. As many of you know, my mum and dad met in support of the Spanish Civil War, in support of the Republican cause in Spain. And I was brought up in that tradition of understanding the heroism of those people that went to Spain at great cost themselves and great danger, many of whom never returned. And so it was entirely appropriate that in 1985, the Great London Council should help with establishing this beautiful memorial here on the South Bank. And at a time when statues and memorials are being discussed all over the world, I can think of nothing more appropriate for the history of this country than to be able to say part of our history is that incredible sense of solidarity with people around the world struggling for their peace, their justice and their freedom. And the poem that's on the side from the great poets of the earlier part of our history, Shelley and Byron and others who stood up for liberty in many parts of the world. And so I just want to conclude by saying this. First of all, a message to our comrades in Spain for all that they endured during the 40 years of Franco's oppression. Muchísimas gracias por su solidaridad. Muchísimas gracias por su lucha contra el fascismo en España y el fascismo en el mundo. And so let's just remember what they did. Remember the lives they laid down, and also the point you were making, that the fight against fascism in Spain, had it been supported by governments in this country and in other countries, maybe Franco would not have succeeded. Maybe the Condor Legion, which were experimenting with bombardment in Guernica and other places, would not have had their chance to bomb civilians all over Europe in the Second World War. The history of the fight against fascism never, ever goes away. Today, the world is dominated by two things, the corona crisis and the solidarity of Black Lives Matters around the world. In both of those, we're examining our own history. In Black Lives Matters, we're examining the colonial history, the oppression that this country imposed on many others through slavery. Let's reconfigure the way we teach history. The history of ordinary people's struggle for their liberty and their justice. That's what Black Lives Matter is about. That's what our campaign is about. I'm full of optimism for the future because of that sense of understanding and solidarity and education that is growing all over the world. Thank you very much, comrades. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
There's a valley in Spain called Jarama. It's a place we all know so well, for it's there that we gave of our manhood, and so many of our brave comrades fell. We are proud of the British battalion, who will stand for the grave that they made, where they fought like true sons of the people, as part of the 15th Brigade, and along with the international column in the fight for the freedom of Spain. Well, we swore in that Valley of Jarama fascism would never reign. Now that we've left that dark